my soul. I never thought of the reach this point now. I just can't put this shit down. Now my bridges are burning to the ground.
Raj Mehta is a licensed master's level therapist with the state of Michigan who has dedicated his life to helping people reach their full potential. Life is short, fortune favors the bold.
Welcome to Ask the Therapist. I'm Raj Mehta. We're going to talk about addiction and get a more sophisticated way of looking at it from more sophisticated of a lens. Imagine I came down from outer space, and here I come down, and I come onto this earth, and I'm thinking about, well, what's this addiction thing all about? And I ask you this question: what is addiction? How would you answer that question? Is it something bad? Is it something good? Is it actually something that you actually maybe even understand? And so looking at different models of addiction allows us to have a better depth and understanding of what addiction actually is. And so the first model of addiction is the moral or spiritual model. And so this model kind of talks about the idea that a person that has maybe a faulty moral code, a bad moral compass, or prone to instant gratification, or not thinking about other people and not being very spiritual, is going to be prone to addiction. And so back in the old days, maybe the 1920s and 1930s, if a woman had an alcoholic husband, where's she going to go to get help? And the truth is, back then, oftentimes the priest, the minister, or the rabbi. And she goes to the minister and says, here's the deal. I have a drunken husband. He will not stop using alcohol. He's blowing all the money at the bar and at the liquor store. Will you please help us? And oftentimes the priest and the church elders would show up knocking on the door, and they would say, here's the deal, buddy. Every Wednesday you're going to be in Bible study, and every Sunday you're going to be in church. You got to change your ways. Obviously you have a moral bankruptcy, and we got to get you back on track. And as a side note, we're going to go to all the local liquor stores and all to the local bars and tell the bartender no longer serve you. So let me ask you guys an important question. Is it possible to be an alcoholic or an addict and still have pretty good morals and values? Well, the truth is yes. I can bring you to Brighton Hospital right now and take you into the group room. There's probably about 5 women and 5 men sitting around there watching TV. And I'll say this to you: see that woman over there? You're like, yeah. Spend some time with her, talk to her. She won't steal your stuff, she won't lie to you, but she's strung out to the gills on Xanax. And so look, morals and values can decline as a person begins to abuse drugs and alcohol over a period of time, but some people that are full-blown alcoholics and addicts are more trustworthy than some people that don't have addiction. So the moral values tied into addiction is much more complicated than what it might seem. How about model number 2? The psychiatric psychological model of addiction. A person must have experienced some kind of really bad trauma in their youth or in some experience like war. And so having been mistreated, molested, beaten, abused, neglected, in your childhood, that's a very deep, powerful psychological wound. And so the theory in a psychological model of addiction is that, well, you have this painful void. And so you're going to use some kind of medication or painkiller to make that emotional pain go away. Now, truth be told, 80% of all female heroin addicts have extensive sexual abuse histories, and so those things kind of go hand in hand. If you really wanted to stop drug addiction, you'd stop child abuse and child neglect. Child abuse and child neglect and child trauma play a direct role in creating addiction. Can you imagine if my circumstances as a young female, something really bad happens to me, I get raped, I get beaten really badly, and I go through that trauma with no assistance, no therapy, no psychology helping me, and I got to deal with that every day. And I get flashbacks, I have recurrent dreams happening to me. Now all of a sudden someone hands me a needle and the most powerful painkiller around. I put that in my arm and all that emotional pain goes away. And that same person tells me, now don't do that every day, otherwise you're going to get hooked. Well, that's not fair. And oftentimes that person will become hooked to that drug because it makes the emotional pain go away. 2 of the guys that I worked with were snipers. One was a sniper in Afghanistan, one was a sniper in Iraq. And when they came back from their experiences in Iraq and Afghanistan, they had PTSD. They couldn't stop thinking about that guy's head blowing off from the bullet that they shot from their gun. And so when I talk to these people, I said, well, what's it like trying to go to sleep? I can't go to sleep. When you do get to sleep, what happens? I'm constantly having nightmares about the experience in Iraq or Afghanistan. Well, that's not fair. I know it's not fair. Have you ever had a chance to talk to anybody about this before? Well, no. PTSD plays a major role in addiction because when you have all kinds of psychological pain and trauma, lots of people drink not to think. Lots of people use drugs not to feel. Now, how about model number 3, the environmental model? I can tell you right now, every mom loves this model. Every mom brings me their kid and says, my little innocent kid is smoking pot, and he's innocent. All his friends are bad. All his friends are the ringleaders in this circle of kids that are abusing drugs and alcohol. I say to mom, hold on, you got to slow down. We got to make sure that Junior isn't actually the ringleader. Look, the environment plays a role in addiction. People that have been exposed to drugs and alcohol over and over again are more prone to using drugs and alcohol. Let's use an analogy. Let's say I grew up in an inner city community with a liquor store on every single corner. People are actively in open air drug markets selling and using drugs. My job as a high school student is to get off that bus every day from school, get off that bus, walk around, avoid these people, not take any drugs or alcohol, stay sober in a single parent environment. Is that fair? No. If I keep coughing on you and say don't catch a cold, that's not fair. That's very insulting. So the environmental model plays a major role in addiction. When we talk about genetics and addiction, we talk about the genetics loads the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. Especially with alcohol, there's a very strong genetic correlation to addiction. So imagine this really bad circumstance. My father's an alcoholic and my mom's a heroin addict. But from the moment that I'm born, the environment changes. I get adopted to this Mormon family out in Utah. Well, what's different about the Mormons? Well, devout Mormons don't abuse any drugs or alcohol. I can have the worst genetics in the entire world, but if I have no access to drugs or alcohol, I can never become an addict. Is that making sense? Now, how about number 4, the existential model, my personal favorite? The existential model talks about a person's perception and their reality and lack of a sense of goal or destiny. So imagine if a person was going around and thinking to himself, well, I'm not sure what I want to do in 2 years. I'm not sure what I want to do in 5 years. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in 10 years. I'll give you an example of this. I have a very wealthy friend who grew up with me and went to high school. His name is Paul. We call him Trust Fund Paul now. So Paul's dad was a very hard-working construction guy. He owned his own company and he made millions of dollars. Paul's dad's dream was for his kids, him and his sister, to never work a day again in the rest of their life. So at 26 years of age, Paul got a $300,000 house. He gets $3,000 every month, and he has a $30,000 car. Remember, it's a trust fund. He gets that money every month. He can't blow through it completely. What do you think happened to my friend Paul in about 2 years? Well, I can tell you. All Paul does every single day, he smokes pot, drinks beer, eats pizza, plays video games, and masturbates every single day. Paul hasn't had a girlfriend in over 5 years. When I say, hey, Paul, how come you don't have a girlfriend? He says to me, I don't want to have a girlfriend because all those girls ever do is complain about my weed smoking. Well, that's what people are supposed to do when you're not doing something right. And so we talk about this existential model to addiction. If you don't have a sense of purpose, if you don't have a sense of destiny, you're more prone to addiction. Let's show the other side of this coin. Anybody recall who John McCain is? John McCain is a senator. He's also very famous for being a Vietnam War veteran. And so John McCain was shot down over Vietnam and spent lots of time in the Hanoi Hilton. Let me tell you this, according to John McCain's own accounts, he was beaten and tortured on almost a daily basis. So based on the PTSD and trauma, why didn't John McCain become an alcoholic or an addict when he was released from Vietnam? Well, the answer is simple. The existential model of addiction. John McCain is too busy serving his country to sit around smoking pot in Paul's basement. You follow my logic? Now, the disease model number 5, the last model we're going to talk about today, is a very simple model. According to the American Medical Association, addiction is a disease. And the reason why, because it meets 2 criteria. It has symptoms and it's treatable. If you go to a doctor, if you go to a treatment center, if you go to get psychological help, they can assess you for alcohol abuse disorder, alcohol dependency disorder, cannabis abuse disorder, or polysubstance abuse disorder. There's all kinds of issues that you can have that can be diagnosed and treated under the American Medical Association's model of addiction, the disease model. This model removes blame and allows a person a sense of control over the issue, allows them to be treated in a medical environment. So let me ask you a question. Out of the 5 models that you see on the screen right now, which model is right and which model is wrong? So when I work with a person that has an addiction problem, I always show them this document and I'll say to them, okay, look at this document. Which model do you identify with the most? If I have a young person that's 15 years old smoking pot every day and says, you know what, here's the problem. All my friends smoke weed. Well, if the environmental model applies to you, let's find you a brand new set of friends. Another guy came to see me and he said, oh my God, it's the existential model. I always wanted to go to grad school and become a PA. Because I'm smoking pot and drinking, I never went on to grad school. Okay, let's focus on that model. Let's focus on getting you back to grad school and recognizing the fact that drugs and alcohol are holding you back from reaching your full potential. Is that making sense? When we talk about addiction, we talk about different models of addiction, but the main symptom of addiction is this, and it's very simple. It's the inability to get high successfully. When you are an addict or alcoholic, when you get high, it causes physical problems. It causes mental problems. It causes social problems. It causes legal problems. It causes financial problems or spiritual problems, or all these problems all wrapped up together. The main symptom of addiction is the inability to get high successfully. Consider it like an alcohol allergy. When a person has a peanut allergy, they eat peanuts, really bad things happen to them. When a person has an alcohol allergy, when they consume alcohol, really bad things happen to them. Not every single time, but over a period of time, and mostly getting worse and progressive. If a person comes to you with a peanut allergy, how many peanuts should they consume? Well, 0. So if a person comes to you with an alcohol allergy, how much alcohol should they consume? 0. So the models of addiction is a very helpful tool for parents and people that are looking at addiction to find out where in this model do I fit and how can I get help. Thank you for your time, and more will be revealed. Welcome to Ask the Therapist, and I have the honor and privilege of interviewing Ross today. Ross is a young man who's recovered and turned his life around completely. And I want to welcome you, Ross. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Raj.
How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for asking.
So with you feeling comfortable, I want to ask you, tell me a little bit about your addiction and how it all started. When did you first begin having access to your drug of choice?
I would have to say that my first contact or exposure to drugs when I was about 14, it was frowned upon even in my own mind, but with peer pressure, given the fact, I would say, 14 years old,
Right.
I tried my first shot of liquor, but there was something after I took that shot that just didn't feel right.
So was it uncomfortable, like a guilt feeling, or the actual physical feeling?
No, actually, it was like this immediate, like, why isn't it working?
Really?
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And so the first thing you ever had was alcohol, the first kind of drug that affected and changed how you felt. So that was your gateway drug into addiction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how did it progress from alcohol? What was the next step?
Well, I left that alone actually entirely, so I kind of stopped alcohol.
Okay.
And then going into my sophomore year of high school, it became more of a repetitious thing as my peers would open up to wanting to smoke marijuana.
Right.
So I made it, not an effort to like get my hands on it, but I didn't shy away from it.
So when marijuana was first around you, did you require any kind of justification or rationalization to try it for the first time? Was there a fear factor involved? Or was it like, we'll just try this and see what happens?
There was a huge fear factor actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I was definitely scared of all the rumors of hallucinating or whatever the drug. I didn't want it to take me out of control.
Right.
So there was a fear.
Okay.
There.
But having seen your friends use it before, you might have a false sense of confidence because of that.
Absolutely, and I think the number one thing that gave me that false sense of hope that you kind of touched on is that people that I saw using the drugs had straight A's.
Okay.
And they were doing good. They were athletes.
Yeah.
They were, your
So
good
they weren't your
teachers.
bad stereotypes then.
No.
I'm talking about the kids that you first associated with were kind of the good kids in a way, right?
Absolutely.
Not the kids that were known as being burnouts or the troublemakers or the ones that were, always having problems.
Mm-hmm.
So your first access to marijuana, does it cost you money? Is it given to you for free?
Actually, so it was the Snow Days dance.
Okay.
And we got it through a friend of mine, and they said, you know, all right, we'll do it after the dance, you know.
Right.
And so we had like this big expectation of what this high was going to be like.
Right. So it was a very novel experience.
Yes.
A very exciting experience.
Very exciting. Yeah. We made it out to be more than what it really was. So you know, we went to the dance, came back, smoked, and nothing happened.
Okay.
And
so you didn't feel anything at all?
Didn't feel anything at all.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So then I woke up the next morning because I had to spend the night because I didn't want my mom to know. You know,
So now we're hiding from the parents,
yeah.
right? Okay.
And so then they're like, hey, we're going over to so-and-so's house.
Right.
And we're going to, you know, smoke some more.
Okay.
And I felt like, well, I didn't feel it the first time. I want to see what this is like.
All right.
And that time is when I got caught my first high.
It changed how you felt then.
Absolutely.
So now we got this euphoric recall. Now you know that you can change how you feel in a matter of moments with marijuana. So how does it progress? How does it get worse over a period of time? What begins to change in your life?
I think that at that day I felt a lot of guilt.
Okay.
Because watching my father growing up,
Right.
watching him use the drug
Yeah.
and his negative repercussions of it.
Yeah, so you ever kind of given a heads up that if your parent is an alcoholic or an addict, there's going to be a 400% higher chance that you can be an alcoholic or an addict?
No.
No one ever told you that?
No.
So you kind of walked into this buzzsaw with no kind of background information.
Not at all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So seeing that my dad, you know, was somewhat functional of a lifestyle,
Right.
I thought that maybe, you know, or it wasn't going to be me that was going to get so hard.
Yeah, you were
into
going to
it.
be different.
But there was still that sense of guilt.
Yeah.
You know, but it didn't take away from the fact of the good feeling of that high.
Right.
So.
But how did marijuana affect your father in a negative way, in your opinion, even back then at 14 and 15?
I mean, he wasn't there emotionally.
Right.
He never really gave me too much insight on life.
All right.
I remember times it was, now that I look back, you know, the times where he was quote unquote getting ready.
Right.
Was really him going downstairs to get high while we waited in the car for him to take us out.
Yeah, so as a young person that's coming up, you know, we talk about parents and we talk about addiction, and so the issue is this. When you have a parent that's abusing drugs or alcohol, we call them zombie parents, which means they might be physically there, but they're emotionally unavailable. And young people are very perceptive. They can pick up on the fact that the person I love and care about, I'm not really connecting with on an emotional level. Does that sound familiar at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So as you begin smoking pot more regularly, what begins to change in your life?
Well, I would say, so it took about 6 months.
Okay.
So it wasn't just
That's kind of fast, actually.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just like a jump all in.
Okay.
It was definitely it became a once every 2 weeks social thing.
Right.
And then it kind of became like a hey after school hobby.
Right.
You know, and then make sure you got your homework done before.
Okay.
You know, there was like these principles a lot of my friends we tried to implicate.
Right.
And a lot of those people actually implicated those things.
Okay.
Myself, I didn't.
Right.
And so.
So there was like some kind of ground rules to smoking pot, right?
Absolutely.
To smoke pot correctly, you got to do your homework first, right?
Yeah.
Do your chores first. It's a lot of work to smoke pot correctly, isn't it?
Yeah. And then we figured out that we, you know, a bunch of like, if I eat before, then it won't ruin my high.
Right.
Yeah, there's all these things that we would start to do, you know,
Okay.
to manipulate our drug effect.
Yeah, and control how it affects you and how it makes you feel.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, over a period of time, fast forward a year into this, what begins to change?
Well, I came from a very strict upbringing in school.
Okay.
In regard to that, meaning my grades were always good.
Right.
And so from the time that I got my hands on this drug, marijuana, and starting to dabble in more into alcohol,
Okay.
going into my sophomore year.
So are you mixing alcohol and marijuana in the same parties, in the same instances?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. No, I that actually became my MO.
Really?
Yeah, going into towards my later sophomore year.
It's called polydrug abuse, where you're using more than one drug at the same time. So it begins to happen with that.
It became, I couldn't just smoke and I couldn't just drink.
Okay.
To have that full feeling of freedom, I needed to have both.
Right.
And
So one or the other would not be enough.
no, it was definitely, I wanted both at the same time.
Right.
So, you know, going into school, things started to change to smoking after school.
Okay.
I would smoke before school,
Right.
smoke on lunch breaks.
But that wasn't the original plan that you were describing.
Not at all, no.
So how does that happen?
You know, I think that looking back now I can look back. I think that looking at, you don't see it as what it is
right
on the surface. You see it as this is normal because a lot of the people around you are doing the same things.
Absolutely. We talk about with regards to how addiction happens, right? It's like kind of boiling a frog. If you want to boil a frog, you throw them into very hot water, very immediate circumstances, very immediate consequences. The frog jumps out of the boiling water immediately. Now, if you want to boil a frog, what you got to do is get some lukewarm water, throw the frog in there, give him a wink and a smile, and slowly turn the temperature up. By the time the frog realizes that he's boiling, it's too late. And that's how addiction works. Does that make any sense?
It makes some sense, yeah.
Okay, so what happens after that? Now we're talking about using alcohol and marijuana together. Does anything get affected? Because you're smoking before school.
Yeah.
So I got to assume it's going to affect your grades.
Yeah, and it definitely did. And so, as I said, it was going into my later into my sophomore year.
Okay.
So I had the whole summer. Now, freedom rings. You have no grades, no responsibilities.
Right.
I began not only just consuming the drug, now selling the drug to contribute my habits.
So you had to sell it to have money to have more marijuana.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then that failed.
Okay.
And so.
Well, the Scarface's law: don't get high off your own supply.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I broke that immediately.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's honest.
Yeah, I failed. And so then I go into my junior year, and I have some missed credits to make up for because I wasn't so solitude in my sophomore year.
Right.
And so, I tried to do school and juggle my party lifestyle.
Right.
But that began to cripple, and I ended up dropping out.
Completely.
Completely, yeah.
So we go from getting really good grades and not using marijuana to smoking marijuana and drinking and having to kind of withdraw from school completely.
Yeah, actually my teacher looked me in my face towards the end of the semester and said, for you to get an A on every single test and do extra credit,
right,
you're still not going to pass my classes.
Wow.
Why are you here?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did anyone in school recognize that marijuana or alcohol is playing a role in these sudden changes in grades? Did any teachers or counselors approach you and say, Ross, you're really known for having good grades and doing well in school. We don't recognize that something has changed in you.
I think a lot of my teachers did know I used.
Okay.
But no one reached out to me.
Right.
Not one
So
person.
that's a missed opportunity right there.
Yeah. Yeah, not one, and I don't say that as a playing a victimized card. I mean,
right.
Truly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty obvious I was high in class.
Right.
And
can I ask you a nosy question? Was anybody else high in class too?
Oh yeah.
So I kind of make an assumption that lots of people want to turn the other way because they don't want to confront a person, right? Because if I confront you about being high in class, you might yell at me, you might break my window, you might have your mom and dad yell at me. It's not really worth it for me to get involved in your life, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
We got kids that can actively get high and lay around in class all day with no real consequences. I'm thinking from a 15-year-old, 16-year-old perspective, well, why wouldn't I get high in school?
Right.
All right. So then what begins to happen? And we're out of school now completely. Mom's got to know about this.
Yeah. Mom sees it. You
All
know?
right.
It's so she takes my car away.
Whoa.
Yep. And gives me a simple task of if you can just pass a drug test, I'll give you your car back.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
So here comes the infamous drug test.
Yeah.
So how do
just
you handle
30
that?
days. I actually tried.
Okay.
Lasted about 8 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a very significant try though.
Yeah.
Because I had substance on me.
Right.
So I began to drop out of the one school to the next school to the next school, but then I landed my perfect school.
Which was what?
I mean, to name it offhand.
No, it's fine. But
Yeah.
a school that does what? What's the focus in that school?
It was an alternative adult education.
And please describe who goes to that school. Give me a stereotype. I'm fine with it.
I would say the burnouts.
Right.
The burnout. It was a burnout community. I felt right at home right when I walked in. I was able to wear a hat in class.
Okay.
Have cigarette breaks.
Right.
I mean, it was like the dream world.
Right.
And then on my lunch breaks was smoke hour. So we would just go get higher in our car.
Cigarette hour or marijuana hour?
But both.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then even at that, the teachers just wanted you to get your diploma.
Right.
That they didn't even care if you were high.
So they're kind of pushing you through the system at that point.
And actually the principal of that school would refrain the police officers from coming and searching you in school.
Right.
only outside of the premises of the school, because she didn't want you to get taken out of that class because she wanted you to pass so bad.
Wow, so it was the safe get high at school with no real consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like basically condoning and supporting it rather than kind of helping it.
Absolutely.
So we go to this school for a period of time. Do things get worse?
Yeah, the progression of my addiction definitely gets worse.
All right.
It's not just a few hits of a joint.
Okay.
It's I need to smoke enough until I black out or.
Do other drugs come into the mix, like pills and all that kind of stuff? And where do you get into the next level of drugs?
Well, at the school I was attending, this gold-plated school I call it. There was this really beautiful girl.
Okay.
And she had contact and resources to get some Xanax.
Okay.
And all I heard of Xanax was that it just makes you relaxed.
Right.
So she gave me, she said, here, you should try it.
So you probably trusted her.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by the looks of her, she seemed pretty mellow and,
Right.
and not like this drug was doing anything.
She didn't
bad to
have
her.
that stereotype, like kind of strung out, junky kind of look, right?
No, not at all. No, not at all. I think that she, gave me the perception of everything is okay.
Yeah.
So I went along with it and I tried it.
Okay.
And then I went back to her because I was like, hey, I didn't get that good of a feeling.
Right.
How can I get, that feeling? So
Yeah.
she goes, well, you got to take a couple. You can't just take one.
Right.
So then that came into the purchase.
Okay.
So then I bought 4 Klonopin off of her that day.
Wow.
That day. And I didn't know the dosage.
Right.
Completely unaware.
Yeah.
I had
high risk of overdose.
Yeah, I had no idea what I was consuming.
Right.
I just knew that this was a drug to make you kind of black out and spacey.
Yeah.
And that's what I was seeking for.
So the question right now is, like, why did you feel the need to get high? What was going on in your life that you felt like I need to get high to deal with it?
I think a lot of growing up in my life, though, I had a lot of acceptance issues.
Okay.
I really never had a real male role model.
Right.
To teach me how to conduct myself as a man.
Right.
And as I say that, again, it's not to play victim. This is just the born
these are
facts.
facts, yeah.
These are facts. So, I think that like you said, the 400% chance of me using was definitely a given.
Right.
So it's that just became my existence.
You used to fill that empty hole.
Yeah.
Right? At a certain point. So how did we get to the point where Ross has to get sober, or the big consequences come in? I know at some point you're actually told by an ultimatum by your mother it was either get sober or no place to live. Is that correct?
Yeah, that happened on multiple occasions.
So not just one single time?
No.
Okay.
So the first one was probably one of the well, there was really 2 big ones, and the first one was the worst.
Right.
And so I couldn't pass the drug test under her standards.
Right.
But if I held the job and I kept on going to the school, things were okay, and I was able to keep my car.
So you're buying time?
Yes. And I was fooling her.
Okay.
And at the point she even said to me she couldn't tell when I was high or when I wasn't high.
Wow.
And that, when she just didn't know, so she could never really cast the blame.
Right.
And I love being in that circle.
Right.
Because then I could still do what I wanted to do.
Ross, what, if anything, were you concerned about your drug usage? What concerns you about your drug usage?
So as I kind of told you, I got the doses of those 4 pills from that girl that night. That night I actually consumed those pills, salvia,
Wow.
marijuana, and I got my pint of whiskey, which was always my favorite. And I remember at that party I looked at my friend and I said, who drank all my whiskey?
Wow.
And because it was down to the bottom,
Okay.
And I was completely blacked out. I don't remember at all,
Right.
anything from that night. And so everyone's freaking out going, Ross, you drank all that whiskey.
Right.
No one's touched it.
Right.
So I get home and I don't know what I said to my mother, but I guess that they were very aggressive words.
Okay.
And I blacked out, and I guess my mom was coming downstairs checking my pulse because I was foaming out of my mouth.
Wow. So your mom's really worried about her son dying in her own house?
Yeah, and she didn't want to call the ambulance.
Right.
Because she didn't want to get me in trouble.
Yeah, it's an MIP charge.
But she also wanted to keep me alive. So here she is running up and down the stairs, I guess, every 40 minutes to make
Imagine
sure.
the stress level on her.
Yeah.
So then what happened after that?
Well, like you said, what made me concerned. I woke up in the morning. I felt fine.
Right.
I actually started making breakfast.
Yeah.
And my mom comes up to me and goes, what's wrong with
Okay.
you? And I'm going, everything's fine.
Yeah.
You know, what do
But
you
everything's
mean?
not fine.
Yeah, well, because
That's part of the game that we got to play.
Yeah, and because I couldn't even recall it the night before, so
Right.
it was definitely one of those things I was like, you know, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
that put me a step back. So I didn't want to get sober.
That's honest. Was it scary, the thought?
It wasn't even a thought,
Okay.
to be honest with you.
So the final confrontation when mom says you have to go get sober, otherwise you have no place to live, how do you handle that? How do you think about that? What did you feel about that?
I was rebellious, and so I started using people.
Okay.
And she told me either it was pass this drug test or get out.
Okay.
So I'm going to prove you wrong.
Right.
And so I got out, and I ended up sleeping, you know, in friends' houses and wherever. Well, those led to dead ends.
Right.
And I remember knocking on my mom's door in the middle of the winter, freezing with a foot of snow on the ground.
Right.
And alcohol screaming off my breath.
Right.
And her saying, "Can you blow on this breathalyzer? I'll let you in the door." I said, "Mom, I'm not going to pass," and she slams the door in my face.
Wow, what'd that feel like?
This is 2 o'clock in the morning. So I actually broke into her car. And with my North Face, I wrapped myself up.
Right.
I sobered up
Yeah.
about 7 o'clock in the morning. She let me back in the door.
Okay. Then what happened after that?
She said that you need to get help, but I still resisted it, you know. And so then I covered it again, you know.
Okay.
I was able to conceal it,
Right.
and you know, I kept on using, and then she kicked me out for a really good time, you know.
Right.
And this time she put her foot down. And, you know, now that I'm sober now, I can
Yeah.
look back and I can tell you, it's because she went to Al-Anon.
Right.
She sought resources.
She got educated. She got a better
yeah.
understanding about what addiction was
Absolutely.
and got help for
Yeah,
herself.
Absolutely. She got educated.
Yeah.
She got the courage to stand and be bold,
Yeah.
and knew that this was the only way that she was going to be able to help me.
Yeah.
And so she put her foot down.
Right.
And without her putting her foot down, you know, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
when we first met, what was on your mind? The first time we got together, that was kind of an ultimatum, right?
Yeah, actually, the first time we met, I was kind of on the run
Yeah.
because my brother had overdosed
Right.
on some pills,
Yeah.
and I was living at my dad's house because, mind you, I'm still kicked out of my mom's.
Right.
And my dad's making me sleep on the couch. So I took all my drugs, and my aunt and uncle are camping
Yeah.
right down the street. So I just went up to Addison Oaks for the weekend thinking, hey, you know, I'm going to have a good time out here.
Right.
And before I met you, it was more of, you know, everyone, this big hype. My dad telling me, hey, we're going to go see this guy for Ryan. You should come.
Okay.
And
that's
you
how
know,
they played it?
Yeah. Well, so before I saw you, I said, you know, okay, well, I'm going to get high this last time.
Okay, the one last time.
The night before I was going to meet you.
Right.
Okay. Well, I did, and I
Okay.
had this real uneasy setting, what I call a God moment, and,
Right.
and it changing. Really, God was like, hey, you're done using drugs. Well, the next day,
Yeah.
hours before meeting you, I told myself I'm not going to get high.
Wow.
I went off to my drug dealer's house.
Okay.
And I picked up.
That's not a good plan.
And I smoked. I
Right.
smoked as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
And then I drove my aunt's car back to her house, and my dad picked me up and drove me right down the street to your office.
Yeah. And then what happened?
You asked me a lot of questions.
And then what happened at the very end? Did we have an agreement?
Yeah.
What was our agreement?
You set an agreement with me to be sober for 90 days.
Yeah, that was our goal. Let's knock
was
out
our
9
goal.
days and see how it feels.
But it wasn't even for me, though. See,
Right.
and that's the way it was played to be, is
Yeah.
I was only doing this for my brother.
Absolutely. And that was true, though, because we were really worried about him dying. Quite
Yeah,
honestly,
absolutely.
he was doing the kind of things that was going to get him killed. And so in the harm reduction model, you know, God bless you with the marijuana and the pill thing, but we're trying to keep your brother alive. And so I need your help to do that. It's called family therapy.
Yeah.
You did that. That
Yeah.
was remarkable.
So I kind of got tricked into recovery.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's what it took to get me to be sober.
Right.
So
But we shook hands at one point. And we all agreed to stay sober, right?
absolutely, yeah.
Right.
You told me that you would hold your end of the, you
Yeah.
know.
And I have. So how long you been sober for at this point?
I've been sober for over 4.5 years.
4.5 years. And how old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
23 years old. So 4.5 years of sobriety at 23 years old. That's remarkable. That's recovery gangster stuff right there. Look, For his age, you got to multiply that clean time by 3 years. That's like having 12 years sober for a 40-year-old. It's that much more difficult to get sober when you're younger. There's so much more peer pressure. The impulse control isn't the same. And also the pressure of society in general. You're being taught through reality television that at your age, you're supposed to be drinking and partying.
Yeah.
And it's hard to break that cycle. So let me ask you an important question. How did you get sober, and how did NA and AA play a role in that sobriety?
Yeah, so how I got sober, you suggested, you didn't tell me, you
Right.
suggested that I should go to these AA meetings
Right.
with my dad and my brother, or just by myself, whatever, for 90 days, 90 meetings.
Yeah.
And I went to these meetings,
Right.
and I really didn't want to get what they had there,
Okay.
but every guy at that table had something that was just like me.
Right.
And so I started relating.
So you began to find a place
Yeah.
you could fit in.
Yeah, and it was weird because throughout my using, I was always fighting for acceptance.
Right.
But yet these people who are, alcoholics or addicts,
Yeah.
accepted me for who I was whole.
That's what's beautiful about those 12-step programs. The
Yeah.
only requirement for membership is a desire to stop using. You don't even have to be clean.
No.
You just have to want to be clean.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you learn by going to these meetings? What actually changed you?
What changed me, I think, were definitely the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. A gentleman pulled me aside after a meeting and said,
Right.
"Hey, I'm Paul. I'm your sponsor."
That's remarkable.
I was so twisted in my way of thinking. I thought this guy actually wanted to get my phone number
Right, right.
to come take
Yeah.
to come take my money
Right.
and all my stuff.
Right.
But
He's going to rob you.
to rob me, right? Because mind you, I'm coming from the street mentality.
Right,
So,
right.
that you just want
There's no possibility someone's going to actually help you
me
for free.
for
Right.
free.
Yeah.
Especially for free. So I look back and I laugh and I can joke around with him about it today. I love that guy to death. You
Right.
know? But yeah, the steps that that took place. I started applying these principles to my everyday life.
Okay.
There was changes in my attitudes. There's a difference between being sober and
Yeah.
being a dry drunk.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that even today, 4 years sober.
Yeah.
I'm not immune to that first drink or drug unless I am actively in these 12 steps.
Right.
Knowing who I am as an addict, knowing who I am as a person,
Yeah.
and who I can be.
Right.
And so, doing these 12 steps and working them in my everyday lifestyle is what got me sober.
Right.
And part of that is relying upon God, which I never did before.
Right.
And there's a saying that goes around the tables, and I'm sure you've heard it yourself.
Yeah.
Is that my best way of thinking got me here.
Yeah, that's true.
So
isn't
if I
it?
think about that,
That's
hey,
humbling.
this might be a great idea to go do this. Why not I run that through someone else like yourself?
Right.
And I know that we had countless times where I did that, and you said,
Yeah.
Ross, maybe this isn't a good idea.
Right.
And now
the teamwork approach,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what's your words of wisdom to other young people that are thinking about beginning to use drugs and alcohol, beginning to take their first Xanax, their first Vicodin? I mean, tell me what your philosophy is on that idea.
I think that it's very important to really look at everything as a whole.
Right.
Your life as a whole. The number one thing that really hit me is something that you brought to my attention.
Okay.
Write down physically.
Yeah.
I mean, legit, this is your life.
Right.
And I mean, your life is, very important.
Yeah.
And, the saying YOLO,
Right.
that all these rappers are broadcasting, you only live once,
Right.
is great. And it is true. And we
Yeah.
do want to live life and be happy and do all these things. But really sit down and ask yourself, what is this drug going to do for me?
Right.
And in the long term, what am I getting out of this? And then even on that counter side,
Right.
like you said to me, name the people that want me to use this drug,
Right.
and then name the people that don't want me to use this drug.
Very good point.
So probably the chances are going to be every single time people
Yeah.
don't want me to use this drug.
Very good point.
You know?
And the philosophy on that, if you think about it, if addiction has killed someone that you love and care about, you need to fight addiction. We're addiction killers. Ross is an addiction killer. I'm an addiction killer. And our focus is on smashing addiction and helping people. So if addiction walked into your family and caused your dad to lose his job, get a DUI, caused your mom to have her liver be damaged, or caused your younger brother to die of an overdose, that's a personal issue. Addiction walked into your home and harmed your family. Now, what are you going to do about that? And so we got to take this fight to addiction. My goal For anyone that's ever died of an overdose that I hear about or know about, my goal is to get 10 people sober in their memory. I want a 10-to-1 kill ratio. That's like in Vietnam. How are you going to win a war? Not with a 1-to-1 kill ratio. It's got to be 10-to-1. And Ross is the real deal. He is a person that's dedicated his life to getting sober, and he stays sober, and he has an active change in attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. He helps other people get clean and sober and does that for no money at all, just because he knows it's the right thing to do, and we're trying to make this world a better place. Is that making sense?
Absolutely.
So anything else you want to mention about the new Ross versus the old Ross? Please give me the difference with Ross now being clean and sober versus the Ross that used to use drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
What are the differences, if any?
It makes me laugh.
What?
Because it's a broad question.
Yeah, but give me something.
I mean, okay, honestly, when I walked into your office at
Yeah.
19 years old,
Right.
my sobriety date's August 9, 2010.
Yeah.
And so I just recently celebrated 4 years.
Yeah.
To look back and you tell me, hey, you can't imagine what kind of life you can actually have.
Right.
It's amazing. I didn't have a car.
Okay.
I couldn't sustain a job.
Right.
My relationships, not only with my family, but even personal, whether it was friend or girlfriend,
Right.
were completely unmanageable.
Okay.
I wasn't true to myself, and I had a lot of things in my heart that I didn't know how to deal with.
Right.
The Ross today, myself, I love who I am.
Beautiful.
I'm able to love who I am, and I'm able to be true to myself.
Right.
And because I know that it's not worth lying about
Yeah.
anymore, and these are things that recovery's taught me. I have my own company that I own.
Yeah, fantastic. I've seen your work; it's phenomenal.
Yeah,
he's a gifted photographer. He's exceptional at what he does.
Yeah, and so I started Center Photography, which is my company.
Yeah.
And I, through being able to be sober,
Yeah.
being able to obtain and save up to get those things, and
Right.
not only that though, but I have a wonderful, girlfriend.
Nice.
And
Does she use drugs or alcohol?
No, she
Fantastic.
She doesn't.
Sober girlfriend, sober Ross.
And even if she did, she's not like me in the alcoholic mind. She can actually have a glass of
Right.
beer and put it away, and
That's not her issue.
It's not her issue, and there are people like that out there. But I have a car,
Okay.
and not only that though, but I have a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm just listening off material.
Yeah.
2-bedroom apartment in Rochester Hills, Michigan.
That's living.
For 23 years old.
That's a real life.
3.4 education.
Yeah. From going from being a homeless person
to nothing.
So self-esteem, up or down?
I would say 100% higher.
Self-confidence, up or down?
100%.
Ability to help people, up or down?
Way up there.
Physical health, up or down?
Way up.
Mental health?
Way up.
Tell them sobriety is the way to go.
Yeah. Listen, if I could talk to the Ross prior to me going into this.
What would you say to that guy?
I definitely don't regret my past.
Right.
Because now I'm able to help so many people.
True. It's shaped who you are.
Yes, and it's definitely one of the most beautiful gifts I have. But I definitely, if you're considering using drugs,
Yeah.
if this is something on your mind you want to dabble in, listen, take the predecessors before you.
Right.
Look at the role models. I mean,
Yeah.
not even just from you and I sitting here, but
Right.
the celebrities.
Yeah.
How many people that actually do drugs successfully and make it and
How
or
many have died
survive?
from it?
It's killing people.
Absolutely.
And there's this image of perfection with drugs, and so I think that if you think you are trying to fill a void,
Yeah.
and you see this, recognize it and get help in a healthy way.
Absolutely
Go to
true.
therapy. Don't seek a substance.
Yeah.
And that's really what I would suggest.
Those are fantastic words of wisdom.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for being here and thank you for sharing.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's
Got
a
it.
pleasure.
We're going to go on to our first question from our social media. And the first question is, what is addiction? And that's a fantastic question, okay? What is addiction? So, addiction is very simple, and I don't want to make anybody angry, but according to the American Medical Association, addiction is a disease because it meets 2 criteria. Addiction has symptoms and it's treatable. Diabetes has symptoms and it's treatable as well. If you want to identify someone who has diabetes, you notice they have high blood sugar and it's treatable with insulin. So addiction is a disease and it's treatable. The problem with that is some people say, well, if I admit that it's a disease, I give a person a license to get high. And that's not true at all. When a person's been aware of their disease, whether it's HIV or cancer or even Ebola, okay, a person is responsible for taking care of that disease and not infecting somebody else. So Ross, what's your opinion? What is addiction?
Wow, that's a deep question.
Throw something out there, man.
I'm gonna say addiction is like it says in the A, but it's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful.
That's right.
Addiction will take you below the animal instincts.
Right.
So
makes you primal.
Yeah. So
and addiction is also like pornography. You can't really describe it, but you know it when you see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so with regards to turning things around, what's recovery?
Addiction is being selfish and self-centered.
Yeah, and self-absorbed.
Yeah, and so when you get into recovery and you start to really have these qualities that recovery gives to you,
right?
As long as you seek it, you become selfless, and you become helping others,
and self-aware.
Yeah, and a lot of people go, oh, well, that can kind of seem like a really boring. Where do you have time for your life?
Yeah.
Well, you actually get life out of helping others. Right.
This is the more difficult path. We have to be honest, okay? Anybody can get high. It takes no courage to get high at all whatsoever. Any coward can smoke marijuana. Any coward can get drunk. It takes a great deal of courage to deal with life on life's terms and not use drugs or alcohol to take the edge off. This is the road less traveled. This is the more noble path. This is the more difficult path. So our next question from social media is, I love this one. This always makes me laugh. Is marijuana addictive? All right, so that's a great question. Oftentimes, I'll have a 15-year-old kid come into my office and his mom's in tears, right? And so the kid gives me a 30-minute lecture on how great marijuana is. It comes from the earth. It's God's gift to mankind. It cures every disease known to man. And one day it's going to be legal everywhere. So if I just smoked pot and hung out with this kid, my mind would expand and I could help more people. And that's my point where I have to give my little retort and say, listen, here's the deal. I'm really concerned about your marijuana usage. And the young person says back to me, no, here's the deal. Bob Marley smoked pot every single day, and he wrote incredible music. And that's when I got to say to you, kid, you aren't Bob Marley, and you ain't ever going to be. Because when Bob Marley smoked pot, his mom never brought him to a therapist for help. So marijuana is addictive, and I can kind of prove that. There's a DSM-5 book, and if you get hooked on marijuana, you have what's called cannabis dependency, which includes tolerance and withdrawal. And so a lot of kids have been so good at convincing their parents that marijuana is safe and okay, parents are actually okay with their kids smoking pot in the house. And so remember, our goal is to not have raising another generation of people that have all their coping skills and strategies by hiding from reality. And so marijuana is addictive. And so Ross, what are your thoughts on if a person tells you that marijuana is not addictive?
I laugh.
Okay.
I really do, because I hear this all the time.
Right.
I've been sober for 4 years, but I still have friends that do participate in this activity.
Right.
And it's like they want to have a debate with me when I don't even want to argue about it. When I look at, the basis of, is it addictive? I can tell you, when I didn't have, I'll never forget this moment, and this is just one story for you.
Sure.
I ran out of weed.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm sitting there, and I'm in my brother's room, and we're on the internet,
right.
And I'm on this. There's this website called marijuanacity.com or something, whatever it was. I don't know what the exact word was,
right.
But I searched how to get high, marijuana high, off of household or whatever.
So you're going through withdrawals.
So I'm literally going nuts.
Craving.
Yeah,
obsessing.
And even when I got sober,
right.
The withdrawals of marijuana were horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I really can't remember the first 2-3 months of my recovery.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so parents come to me and they say, look, what's the deal, Raj? I smoked pot when I was in college. I got good grades. I graduated. Why can't my son or daughter smoke pot and still get good grades? Well, here's the truth. Back when you were smoking pot, it was 5% THC. These kids are smoking 20 to 25% THC. Imagine the difference in a beer that's 5% alcohol versus a beer that's got 25% alcohol. You can't even compare the two. And so the current marijuana is so potent and so strong, it's causing additional side effects and additional consequences. We got to be honest about marijuana. There is no drug that's going to be mind or mood altering that's not going to have an addictive property to it. And so marijuana affects short-term and medium-term and long-term memory. Marijuana lowers IQ. Marijuana causes psychotic manifestations and delusions and paranoid behavior. Marijuana can actually cause female breast tissue to develop in males. I mean, I have a list of things here that marijuana does, and none of them are nothing nice. And so here's a deeper concept here. Oftentimes I'll meet a mom and her kid smoking pot and living in the basement. He's about 30 years old, even sometimes 35, 40 years old. I'll ask the mom, why doesn't your son have a job? Oh, he can't pass a drug test. Why does your kid smoke pot? Oh, he doesn't have a job. And some of these clever kids can continue that cycle for about 10 more years. So Ross, any thought about the marijuana Peter Pan syndrome, never wanting to grow up? I don't want to have adult roles. I don't want to have adult responsibilities. I just want to live in mom's basement.
I was that guy. I was living in my mom's basement.
Right.
I think that, you know, even watching my family, and I'm not going to say names,
Right.
but I watch people do this.
Yeah.
You know, and I did it. I was in my mom's basement, smoking pot, playing video games,
Right.
going out and having fun with my friends.
Yeah.
And I was living in this complete fantasy that everything was fine because marijuana was just hugging me so gracefully,
Right.
saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
don't worry, you're okay as long as you're with me." But when the drug was taken away,
Yeah.
all of a sudden
Temper tantrum.
yes.
Right.
And there was this sense of loneliness and no construction of life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. Ross, well, thank you for being here once again.
Thank
You did
you.
a
It's
fantastic
always a
job.
pleasure, Raj.
Take care and God bless. Thank
God
you.
bless.
I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope this was helpful and I hope this made sense. Only you can make a difference. Remember, the meaning of life is very simple. You are born, you try to make yourself relevant, and then you die. Go out and make yourself relevant. Fortune favors the bold.